As we get closer and closer to the offseason, the excitement is growing about what the Chicago Bears could do both in the draft and free agency. On today's episode, we're going to look at an article that predicts 3 bold predictions for the Chicago Bears in the offseason. We'll talk a little bit about that and look at the latest updated 3-round mock draft. And we have an update on Ian Cunningham potentially getting out of Chicago. We're talking about all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Derek Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go to get into the content for today, y'all. I'm going to start off with this article from Jordan Campbell, in which he has 3 bold predictions for the offseason for the Chicago Bears in 2025. I'm going to give my thoughts on it. We're going to go through the article. First one is that the Bears will add 3 new starting offensive linemen. And my first reaction to this, we'll get into what he says here, is, yeah, no shit. No offense. I don't mean to start off the podcast right off the top being a little Petty Roosevelt-y, but the Bears will add 3 new starting offensive linemen. They better goddamn well add at least 3. So that could be at the minimum, is adding 3 new starting offensive linemen. But it did say, this in regards to it is that Bears will add 3 new starting offensive linemen this season. 2 of those additions will come in free agency, as the Bears will undoubtedly look to grab a veteran center, while potentially circling Trey Smith for one of their starting guard spots. That is aligned with what I want to see the Chicago Bears do. Not to toot my own horn, right? It's not like I haven't broke any ground on that. I think most Bears fans agree. I talked about on yesterday's episode, Trey Smith is definitely the first name that I would love to see the Chicago Bears go after if he does hit the free agent market. They're going to have other suitors, though, right? Guys like Trey Smith do not hit free agency very often. They just don't. Not with his age, his accolades, and how good he is. They usually don't hit unrestricted free agency. So if he makes it through without being franchise tagged by the Kansas City Chiefs, yeah, it's already gone. It's already written. The Chicago Bears should absolutely be there at his door knocking day one. I want to see the Chicago Bears also sign Evan Brown as a veteran option there for the Chicago Bears at that center position. I want to see them get a veteran center. I just think that that's the thing that makes the most sense for a Bears team, is to go out there and get a veteran center that can come in and perform the way that you need him to be. And Evan Brown is that guy. You also can draft a center as well and develop that guy along. But with all the up and down shit that the Bears have dealt with at that center position, I want to see a veteran center there for the Chicago Bears. So I'm in line there. So I do think 2 veteran signings is key here for the Bears. But I also think that they spend at least 2 of their first 4 draft picks on offensive linemen. That's just my personal opinion. I think that that's kind of where everything kind of makes the most sense for the Bears at. Again, this in my opinion, right, when it comes down to it. And so we'll continue to see what's going to happen, right, for this with the team. And, when it comes down to it as well in the draft, the Bears have the options of either trading up or trading down. I do think they're going to be looking and evaluating what both opportunities could bring this team as far as trading up or down. But, we'll see there. We have gotten some word in regards to something like that. Albert Breer said this: I think every team in the top 5 will at least look at the idea of trading down. With the dearth of top-end players available, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter are, for a lot of folks, the only 2 real blue-chip players, and the shaky quarterback group in the class, of course. These elements could make it tough for teams to find teams willing to trade up. Now, the Bears could be one of those teams that could look to trade up, right, and take advantage of the fact that this isn't a deep quarterback class per se, and trade up and get their offensive linemen. But then again, because there is that talk from draft experts that the gap between first round and second round linemen aren't that huge, that maybe the Bears look to do that as well. So those options do exist. But as far as to start off this article, I agree that the Bears are going to add at least 3 starting offensive linemen. I personally think it's going to be 4, but hey, it is what it is when it comes down to that. But let me know what you guys think on that one. The next one, as far as in this article, is the Bears will trade for Michael Parsons. Now, I have videos out on this. I've talked about it when it comes down to it. The Bears really don't have right now the capital I don't think the risk tolerance to trade for somebody like Michael Parsons, Myles Garrett, like I just don't think that they have the risk tolerance to trade for them. The Bears have cap space, right? They have the fifth most cap space in the league, so they have cap space and they can create more. I talked about how they could waive, certain players and Gerald Everett and other players to create a little bit more cap space for them, about 10 extra million in space. But I still don't see the Bears giving up the necessary draft capital as well as cutting into their cap space to trade for a guy like Michael Parsons. I just don't see it when it comes down to it. Yes, he turns 26 in May. It is what it is when it comes down to it. But I think if you are adding veteran offensive linemen that could be expensive, you also see what they do at other positions. They could draft a running back. They could look to sign a running back. So all those things create an environment where as far as and then also giving up draft capital, I just don't know if this is the year that the Chicago Bears do something like that personally. So I don't necessarily agree with this one that the Chicago Bears are going to trade for Michael Parsons. I don't think that the Bears are going to trade for any big name in this offseason personally that's going to cut that much into their salary cap space. Now, I've been wrong before. I could be wrong about this, absolutely, right? And it's not that I would be mad if the Bears do. It's just it creates a situation where the Bears have to be even more creative about what they do in the draft if they do make a trade for somebody like a Michael Parsons. So we'll see what happens there. This is part of the article I don't agree with. I just don't think that trading for a Michael Parsons is something that's on the table. But it seems like a lot of Bears fans do, and maybe I'm the one that's going to end up being wrong in this when it's all said and done. But we'll see. Next up, as far as the last bold prediction in this article, it says the Bears will break a ground on a new stadium in Arlington Heights. Listen, the stadium, if you guys have noticed here, we've kind of fallen back on coverage of stadium things just because, there's so much up in air about the stadium between the funding, not getting the funding from the state that they initially had, the Bears even having this whole day where they had this whole press conference and presentation on what the new stadium was going to be, for that to only kind of fall apart shortly thereafter. I'm just tired of the stadium. Like, the stadium thing is more taxing and tiring than what the coaching search was. You remember when I got tired of talking about the difference in who the 20-something guys the Bears were bringing in for coaching interviews or requesting interviews on? The stadium thing is, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, right? At this present point in time, I'm more kind of focused on what the Bears are doing on the field than the field they're going to be playing on. That's just where I stand right now. But, we'll see what happens overall with it. And whatever comes of it is what comes of it, right? So, we'll see what happens overall. And, we'll see what the future holds for the Chicago Bears in that. Now, with that said as well, we do have a couple of new mock drafts as well out for the Chicago Bears. ESPN had their mock draft, as well as CBS has their mock drafts. NFL.com has their mock draft as well from Chad Reuter. We want to look at both these mock drafts for the Chicago Bears and kind of see where the mocks have the Bears drafting. So in the NFL.com's mock draft, they have the Bears drafting Will Campbell at 10 overall, the offensive lineman out of LSU. Now, this is a guy that he's been popular in a lot of mock drafts for the Bears, right? And there are questions on if he actually falls to the Chicago Bears here. That's the question there when it comes down to it. There's also questions on his position. Is he going to actually play tackle in the NFL, or is he going to move over to guard, right? Either way, he's a tremendous talent. And I think when it comes down to it, we know that protecting Caleb Williams is one of the focuses of the offseason overall. So if they get Will Campbell, fine, great. There's no problem there. Now, if he's not on the board, that's where I think the Bears start looking at doing some other things at number 10. But with that said, we're talking about other outlets mocks. Our mocks will start next week. So the way that it's going to work, and I meant to say this before I started getting into mock drafts, the way that it's going to work is that we're going to have mock draft episodes individually from me, Bobby, C-Dub, Steve-O, and Big Kev. So all 5 of us are going to drop our mock drafts over the course of next week. So they're going to be additional episodes to the daily episodes. So we're still going to drop the dailies in the morning, and then you get the mock draft episodes more towards the evening of next week. So stay in tune for that if you want to hear who we have the Chicago Bears drafting in our own personal mock drafts. But with that said, so that's Will Campbell, who NFL.com has the Bears selecting at number 10. At number 39 in round 2, they have the Chicago Bears drafting Mike Green, and this is the defensive edge out of Marshall is where he's out of. He had 17 sacks last year. He's 6'4", 248 pounds. This guy's an absolute monster. when it comes down to it. Like, you cannot, like, physically, presence, he's great. Now, the 17 sacks is the most that he had. He had 4.5 the year before that and 1 sack the year before that when it came down to it. But this guy is a physical specimen, and he makes a lot of sense for the Chicago Bears as if they are looking for a young edge rather than going veteran at that position. He makes a lot of sense for the Chicago Bears, right? He also stood out in the Senior Bowl, and the Chicago Bears do have a big history of drafting standouts from the Senior Bowl since Ryan Poles has taken over. So Mike Green being there at pick 2, at our second round pick at pick 39, it makes a lot of sense for the Bears. Next up, they have the Bears with pick 41 in the second round, drafting Donovan Jackson, the guard out of Ohio State. Now, you guys already know how I feel about my Ohio State players, right? So, having the Bears drafting 2 offensive linemen with their first 3 picks, I think that's what a lot of people have, right? Tevin Jenkins, not likely to return. We'll see what happens there. Nate Davis is gone, thank God, right? And a lot of our other offensive linemen are free agents when it comes down to it. This is going to be a draft where the Bears have an opportunity to heavily invest in the offensive line. Donovan Jackson would continue that, right? He's a guy that's really good. You got Darnell right there, so you still got that one guy that you're looking to build around. And I do think we could see 4 new starters across that unit, and Donovan Jackson is a guy that can come in and start day one. And then with our pick in the third round, pick 72, this is the first time I've seen this mock to the Chicago Bears, but in researching this guy, I like him a lot. NFL.com has the Bears drafting Caleb Johnson. This is the running back out of Iowa. He had 240 carries last year for 1,537 yards, 21 touchdowns, and an average of 6.4 yards per carry. Monster. And this was the biggest season that he had in his junior year. His prior years, he had 463 yards on 117 carries and then 779 yards as a freshman as well with 6 touchdowns. But this is a guy that's 6 foot, 225 pounds, and he fits a lot of what the mold that I think the Bears should be looking to add if they add a running back. That's somebody with a different physical presence and running style to what DeAndre Swift brings. This guy's also solid enough in the passing game. Not a lot there, but it's Iowa, it's college. 188 yards and 2 touchdowns receiving last year. So we'll see what happens there for him. But this is a guy that has the physical presence. He has the upside. I like him a whole lot here for the Chicago Bears, and we'll see if that's the direction that the Bears do go. Now, with that said, we also got other mock drafts for the Chicago Bears. As always, it's just a mock time right now. We got ESPN's mock draft as well for the Chicago Bears. And this one, it's just pretty straightforward. It's just the number 10 overall pick. And they have the Chicago Bears drafting Kelvin Banks Jr. This is a guy that we've talked a lot about. I think most Bears fans at this point are familiar with Kelvin Banks Jr., and we know what he brings. We know what he doesn't bring, right? He only gave up 4 pressures on 515 pass blocking snaps in 2024, right? That's one of the lowest percentages in football, in college football, period, right? And so he's a guy that could either be a guard or a tackle in the NFL, and that will be determined by this coaching staff if they do draft Kelvin Banks Jr. But I do think that he can be gotten if you trade down, and that could be something that the Bears, of course, look at. We've talked about it, like the chances of them trading down or trading up do exist there in this draft, and we'll see what the future does hold for the Chicago Bears there. But let me know what you guys think of the mock drafts, right? Do you think that, especially with the talk being done, that the Bears could look to trade up or to trade down in this draft? Which one of those do you think is the most likely scenario for the Chicago Bears? Let me know all that down below. But with that said as well, right, we did get some word from Dennis Allen and his comments in regards to why he chose the Chicago Bears, right? And it seems like that Ben Johnson actually reached out to Dennis Allen back as far as Christmas, right? Christmas. So it like when you hear, and this is the thing that I've always said, right, is that it seems like when Ben Johnson said that this is where he wants to be, right? And a lot of coaches say that when they finally get hired. But it really seems like right now, that is the truth of the matter when it comes down to it, is that Ben Johnson really did just want this Chicago Bears position. That's what it feels like. That's what it seems like. Hearing him talk about it, everything that we've heard come out since then, it just feels like he really just wanted to coach the Chicago Bears. And considering where the Bears have been as a franchise for the last few years, there's something in that fills me with a little bit of pride, right? That this coach, right, they could have had, let's be clear here, Ben Johnson could have got anybody he wanted, any coaching job that he wanted, just about, right? And the fact that it seemed like he zeroed in on, no, I want to coach the Chicago Bears. I don't know if we've ever had that before, right? So that feels really good when it comes down to it. But, Dennis Allen also said this. Oh, man, there have been so many good ones. Our head coach here, Ben Johnson, was about as good as they come. He was asked about who's the most difficult scheme that he ever have to coach against. Sean Payton was always a real challenge to have to go against. Andy Reid has always been very tough to go against, and there's a lot of good coaches in our league. I don't know that they've ever gone into a game and said that was an easy one. But of course, he's going to big up his new head coach in Ben Johnson. But the fact that Ben Johnson reached out to Dennis Allen maybe as far back as Christmas, hey, that's wild when it comes down to it. Shout out to Ben Johnson. No wonder he's moved so intentional since he's taken over the job as the head coach of the Chicago Bears and filling out his staff, because this is the job that he apparently wanted. And like I said, a lot of coaches, a lot of aspects of sports, they're about blowing smoke once you get a job. But for Ben Johnson, it seems like this is just really where he wanted to be, and he landed in a place where him and his family wanted to be, and now we got to see what's going to come of that, right? But with that said, the last thing that we have to talk about today is Ian Cunningham does have his interview for the Jaguars GM position on Friday. Now, it seems like, per my thoughts, right, is that Ryan Poles has kind of been setting up and preparing to potentially lose Ian Cunningham. The fact that Ian Cunningham really wasn't involved in the coaching search, right, which could be partly because you're preparing for this guy to leave. He didn't get the Tennessee Titans job. His second time being a finalist for that job. Now it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars job, right? Now, Ian Cunningham has turned down himself the Washington Commanders head of football ops job, right, as well. And he reportedly also turned down the Arizona Cardinals job in 2023. The question is this going to happen for the Chicago Bears? And this thing just keeps getting extended, right? And I'm almost as tired of talking about stadium and head coaches as I am about the saga of Ian Cunningham and whether he's going to take a job to become, a GM somewhere else. But this is important because if he does leave the Bears get an additional third-round pick in the next two drafts. That's why this is the most important aspect for it, because that's another tool for Ryan Poles to use, whether it's trading up, whether it's trading down, whether it's using the pick. It's another tool in the shed of Ryan Poles. And I think that's what it all comes down to, at least for me, is just looking at that aspect of things, right? So we'll see what it holds. Like at this point, if he leaves, he leaves, right? No knock on Ian Cunningham at all when I say that. I hope that Ian Cunningham goes out and has a great place for him to be, right? Because I think in having that, it's going to be really good for him. But I think overall as well, you got to look at it and say this, man. What Ian Cunningham does or does not do, right, is really not as important, right, as when the decision is made. Because if he does end up leaving, it is what it is when it comes down to it. And the Bears would have to, we'd have to promote somebody, find a new assistant GM, whether that's done externally or Ryan Poles promote somebody from within, which I think at this point in the offseason it may be something that happened that you're probably promoting from within. That's just my personal opinion, but we could be wrong on that one. But overall, I'll say this, man. The Chicago Bears have their things that they need to look at. And we'll see what the future holds, man. We'll see what the future holds for the Bears. But let me know what you guys think down below. Will Ian Cunningham end up leaving for a new GM job this offseason, or do you think we're going to have another season of Ian Cunningham and another round of interviews as this goes over next year as well, right? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. But with that said, we are gearing up and preparing for the next steps. Like I said, just as a little note next week, so you guys know what to look forward to next week, you're going to get 2 episodes each of next week, the daily episodes, and then, of course, our first round of mock drafts. We're going to be doing 2 mock drafts this year, maybe 3. We're going to do a pre-combine mock draft and then an after-combine mock draft, and then we may do another mock draft after the Bears start scheduling some of their top visits and things like that. We may do another round of mock drafts, but we're not going to kill you over the head with it and try to milk it where it's like some other outlets have 20 mock drafts between the end of the season and the start of the season. We're going to put in everything into using all the information possible to building the best mock drafts we possibly can and then delivering that content. That's what we're going to do. So, you get a mock from each of us because we all have our different thoughts and opinions. And so you'd be getting a video on that from each of us, probably be shorter videos. Last time we did mock drafts, Bobby nailed it. So I'll be on the lookout for that. It'll be a little fun competition, too, to see which one of us get it the most close to being right. So there you go on that one. But otherwise, man, as always, we're the only truly daily Chicago Bears show. Monday through Sunday, we're dropping content every single day on the channel and on the podcast side. The one thing that I ask for you guys If you're on the podcast side, go and leave a 5-star review either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to help the podcast grow. If you're listening to this as a podcast after the fact on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, just go over to the YouTube, Chicago Bears Central on YouTube, type that in, hit the subscribe button, help us grow over there on YouTube. But with that said, that's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following the show at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.